Hi. If you want to create a will, I can help you. In this video, I'm going to tell you why to create a will, when to create a will, how to create a will, what to put in the will, and where to store it when you're finished. I'll end the video with telling you some things that you should not do. And unfortunately, a lot of them are going to be things that people just love to put into their wills. But we'll talk about that later. A lot of times people say they don't need a will. They have their spouse, and when they die, everything will go to their spouse. Or they don't have a spouse, and so according to the intestacy laws in their state, everything will go to their children. They don't need a will. But things change. The husband could run off with the secretary. The wife could empty out the bank accounts and go off to parts unknown. And one of the things to keep in mind is that if you and your spouse already made a will when the kids were little, which everybody should, by the way, if you have children, I don't care if you're 20 years old, if you have kids, you need a will. We'll talk about guardianship later. But if you and your spouse made this will many years ago, and since then, as I said, things have changed, and the two of you are separated, but you're not divorced, and you've never changed your will, if for some reason you pass away, your spouse will take all, because he's still your spouse. At least he will in my jurisdiction. So you want to think about things about whether or not you need to update your will. Generally speaking, they say you should update your will every 3 to 5 years, or when there's life changes. We'll talk about life changes in a second, but I also want to talk about those adorable children that you and your spouse raised. They were little angels, weren't they? Well, as time goes by, they don't always stay little angels. Maybe one of them has developed a serious drug or alcohol problem. Or you've heard some rumors that your son is having some serious financial problems because he has some gambling issues. Things change. Listen, if you die without a will, then the state is going to just give half your estate to both of your two kids. And what happens to the kid who has that drug or alcohol or gambling problem or porn problem or whatever he's got? What happens to that kid? If suddenly he inherits $100,000 or $50,000 or $20,000, what happens to him? What do you think he uses that money on? The state's just going to give it to him because you didn't have a will. You, however, have the choice of deciding what happens with that money. Maybe that son of yours that's having some problems has a couple of kids. Do you want to bypass him and set up some kind of a trust for his two children and appoint somebody who's good with money, not him, but somebody who's good with money to be the trustee, so that money is secure for at least the kids, your grandchildren? There's a million reasons why you should make a will, and I can't think of any one good reason not to. Well, yes, I can. I can think of a good reason. It's uncomfortable. People don't like to talk about it. They don't want to think about, well, if I die. We're going to get into some of that has always, with my clients, has always been disturbing for them. They come into my office thinking that they know who they want for their executor, and if they need a guardian, who the guardian's going to be, who the trustee's going to be. They know, they figured it all out until I start asking more probing questions. And I get it. It's hard to think about these things. But each step takes you a little bit closer. And once you have your will set up, then you can rest assured it's something you can cross off your list. Something you don't have to worry about anymore. So if you've made a will, that's great. Congratulations. However, there are changes in life that might require you to reconsider. There are weddings that happen. There are births that happen. There are losses that we suffer. There's lots of changes that can happen. And so, as I mentioned, the rule of thumb is every 3 to 5 years, look at your will again, or when there are life changes. Now, what goes into a will? First of all, you need to choose an executor, or in Pennsylvania, we call them executor or executrix. We're kind of a little old-fashioned over here. But anyway, you're going to choose an executor, somebody who's going to administer your will. You want someone who's good with money, good with paperwork. It is usually a family member, but it doesn't have to be. I would suggest that it be somebody who, okay, first qualification, good with money. Second qualification, good with paperwork. Third qualification, lives close to where that will is going to be probated, which is wherever the person who died used to live. However, it doesn't have to be like that. Being an executor is a big job. You know, everybody says, "Oh, I'm so honored," or "I was so insulted. He wanted my brother to be the executor." Can you imagine? Listen, it's a big job. It's not necessarily an honor. There's a lot of paperwork involved. So choose carefully who you think would be best suited for the executor job. And another little tip I would give you is make sure you talk to this person ahead of time. You know, you're all set. Okay, it's going to be Bob. But you talk to Bob, and he just got a promotion, and he's totally stressed out, and the 3 kids are driving him nuts, and he just doesn't want it. Doesn't want it. So before you choose who your executor is, talk to your potential executor and see what they say. Doesn't have to be a family member, as I mentioned. It can be a friend. It can be your attorney. Sometimes I've had multiple clients ask me to be the executor, and I have always declined. You know, no. You find somebody else. So that's basically the step number 1 is figuring out who your executor is. Step number 2 is figuring out who your beneficiaries are. Now, most of this video, I'm going to do it that you have been predeceased by your spouse. Just makes it easier, because generally speaking, you know, if you have 2 spouses, one dies, the other one takes everything. Not always, however, but usually that's the way. So I'm just going to presume you're the last of the partnership to survive, and you have passed away. So now, who are your beneficiaries? Usually, it's the kids, right? But it doesn't have to be. And you can also decide how your assets are going to be split. Normally, they're split 50-50. Doesn't have to be. Again, like the example I mentioned where one of the kids has a drug or alcohol problem. But you want to think about that. You know, there might be one kid who, you know, she's been living close to you. She's the one that always comes over when you need her. And the other kid lives, you know, 1,000 miles away in a different state. And he calls, you know, once a month. And he's quite well off. He and his wife are doing just great. And meanwhile, the daughter, not doing as well. You might want to give more to her. Okay? That's totally up to you. And by the way, I'm going to probably mention this again. Nobody has to know what's in your will. Okay? You can keep that all under wraps if that's what you want to do. Now, this is one of those things that I mentioned earlier, that one of the reasons it's hard to talk about it. One of those questions I ask that nobody's expecting. Let's say you have 2 kids, and both of your 2 children have 2 of their own children. Okay? Your daughter has 2 daughters, and your son has 2 sons, just to keep it easier. What happens if your son or daughter, but if your son predeceases you? If, he's not feeling well, he goes to the hospital because he hasn't been feeling well for days and something's up, and he goes to the hospital and they start doing testing, and he's got pancreatic cancer. And within a couple of weeks, it's stage 4. So within months, he's going to be gone. He predeceases you. He has, let's make it easier. Let's say he is divorced from his wife. So all he has is his 2 kids. You have to decide. Well, listen, it depends on what, I'm going to say this a million times in here, but probate law is a state-by-state law. It's a states' rights issue, okay? It's not, which means it was not mentioned in the Constitution. So anything that wasn't mentioned in the Constitution reverts back to the states, and the states can make all their decisions about things, which is why each state is different. Same thing with marriage rules, who can get married and who can't. That's a states' rights issue. So with probate, you have to figure out what your rules are for your state. Good idea to do a little research on your own about that. But let's say he has no wife, he has 2 sons, minor sons. Well, you pass away, you have a sister who has 2 daughters, and you have 2 grandsons by your deceased son. Who, if you don't have a will, who gets that? Does the daughter get the entire estate? She might. Or does she get half the estate and the 2 grandsons get half the estate? Which normally you would think, yeah, that's exactly what I would want to have happen. My son's kids should get the estate, his side of the estate, right? But it's tricky, it's tricky. You have to be thinking about these things and planning. And I know nobody wants to think about this stuff, but you have to think about it. Because let's say he never married, but he always wanted to be a father. And so he decided a few years back that he was going to adopt some kids. And since, the older kids are the ones who really need the help, he adopts these 2 kids that are young teenagers, 13 and 15. They're brothers, and he decides that he's going to adopt the 2 of them. And he loved them greatly. You didn't. You didn't like the way they acted. You didn't like the way they treated him. Whatever. You disapproved. And in addition, they didn't like you. They still don't like you. Do you want them to inherit half of your estate? Because if he legally adopted them, they're his heirs. You want them to get half of your estate? If you have a will, you can actually say who gets what. And we're going to talk about that when we come down to the part about mistakes that people make. We're going to talk about that a little bit, about how you figure out, strike that, not how you figure it out, but how you decide to actually write down who gets what. So the third thing you need to do is figure out who the guardians are going to be. You might not need any guardians. If your kids are, over 18, they don't need guardians. However, sometimes I find with older folks, they have a dependent who is over 18 but has special needs. And, you know, the family has always taken care of this, you know, maybe a baby you had in your 40s or something who has special needs, and you're worried sick over who the heck is going to take care of Janie when we're gone. Well, that's what the will is for. You have to figure out who your guardians are going to be. And just like I said with the executors, you should be talking to people that you think, who do you want to be the guardian? Talk about a big job. You know, you're asking a lot from somebody. So you need to talk this over with somebody that you think would be the perfect person to be the guardian for Jane. I'm just making up names, okay? If you don't do that, let's skip over the special needs dependents. Let's just say you have minor kids. Let's say you're 45 and you have, you know, 3 kids that are, I don't know, 12, 8, and 5. Now, most people are going to say, well, if I die, the kids are going to be with their father. But what happens if you die in a car accident and your partner is the one who was driving and he has also died in the accident? And the two of you are taken out just like that. Now, who takes care of the kids? Is it your parents? Is it his parents? Is it, you know, does he want the kids to be raised by his brother, who you don't necessarily like all that much? Is it a girlfriend? What happens if you have, like, a brother and sister-in-law that you adore, but they live someplace that you don't want your kids to grow up in? They live out in California. You don't want your kids in California. You have to do a lot of thinking about it. And in a situation like this, I would discuss it with the father, or if you are the father, discuss it with the mother. And again, just as I've said, talk to your potential guardians. Ask them, would you be willing, if God forbid something were to happen to me and my husband, would you be willing to take on my 2 children and raise them as your own? Ask them and pray that they give you an honest answer. So now we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of this. How do you create a will? Step 1, list your assets. On a separate piece of paper, just sit down and write out all your assets. Everything that you have, your house, your car, your jewelry, your coin collection, your mutual fund, your pension fund, life insurance, if you have any, whatever you have, anything and everything you have, so that you have a clear understanding of what you have. And if you can also just approximate what that's worth, I think you're going to be surprised at how much money is in your estate. Step 2, decide on your beneficiaries. We've already discussed that a little bit. Step 3, choose an executor. We've already discussed that. Step 4, name guardians for minor children or dependents with special needs. And step 5 is to finalize and sign the will. That's called executing the will. Now again, like I said, it's a states' rights issue, so some states require 2 witnesses, some require 3 witnesses, some require the witnesses notarized, some don't. So do a little bit of research so that you know, if you're going to do this on your own, so that you know what is required and how to do this correctly. Somehow I have skipped over the different ways that you can actually get a will done. One, obviously, is an attorney. And you want an estate planning attorney. Not the attorney on the corner that does DUIs and traffic stops, and real estate deals and estate planning and probate, and he does it. No, you want an estate planning attorney. Estate administration is for processing the probate end of things. You want an estate planning attorney, somebody who knows what the heck he's doing, particularly in your jurisdiction, okay? Or nowadays, you can go up online. eForms.com has wills, and I've done a number of wills for clients on eForms.com, which might be exactly how whoever you choose, the lawyer, they might do it with eForms.com too. Because, look, 10, 15 years ago, you used to be able to go over to Staples or Office Max, Office Depot or something, and get templates, right? You could just, there was a whole row of things that you could pick out a will. I always said, don't do that. It's every state is different. But now, like eForms.com is great. And it will ask you specific questions. You can go up and just start. I think you can get a couple, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 documents for free to begin. And they ask you specific questions. What's the name? What's your name? Where do you reside? What's the name of your children? And then they just go through the whole thing. And then you can see, as you're answering these questions, you can preview what the will's going to look like. And it looks great. And for each state, it's very specific. They know what they're doing. For transparency's sake, I should tell you that I have applied for eForms affiliate program. Today is a Sunday, and I'm not sure. Got some really strange. Well, here's what happened. I applied on Tuesday for the affiliate program because I knew I wanted to write this. I wanted to do this video, and I wanted to get it out this weekend. And I knew it was going to be about wills, and I love eForms. I use them. And I thought, well, let me apply. I've applied to Amazon's affiliate program, got into that with no problem, even though I only had I think I had 16 subscribers and I got into Amazon. Well, I am all the way up to 37 subscribers. And I thought, well, I'm just going to ask them. And they have this little thing that you fill out and apply, a little application for. Well, by Friday, meaning 2 days ago, I still hadn't heard back. So I still had not heard back. And so I contacted the customer service for eForms, which this guy is like, you applied to what? He didn't even know what I was talking about. So finally he says, oh, well, I can't tell you about what my superiors are going to decide on this, but I will pass your message along. So 30 minutes later, I get a form rejection letter from them. So I guess, he said something to somebody and they're like, oh, what? So they rejected it and basically said, we regret to inform you that your application has been denied. We are grateful for your understanding. I'm like, my understanding? I don't understand. You haven't told me why you rejected it. But I have a funny feeling that the only 37 subscribers, that might be part of the problem. So I'm like, okay, well, that's understandable. That's fine. I'm still going to promote eForms because I think eForms.com is great. They also have promissory notes and real estate papers that you could. That's God. Hello. I am an attorney. I really am. I don't talk like an attorney, but I really am. They've got all kinds of stuff. Lease agreements, and promissory notes, and all kinds of stuff. Powers of attorney, living wills, advance directives, blah, blah, blah. They have a lot of things. So whether they take me into their program or they don't, it doesn't really matter because I am going to promote them because I do use their products in my practice. Well, then, a half hour after I get this rejection letter, then I get a real email from somebody who identifies herself as the affiliate program manager. And she describes a little bit about the program and then says, I see you mentioned your YouTube channel. Is that what you wanted to use this for? Blah, 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 blah. And so I wrote her back. It took me about 15, 20 minutes to actually compose the email that I wanted. And I said, yeah, absolutely. This is what I want to use it for. And at the very bottom, I said, fortunately, I've received an email saying that my application has been rejected. Does this mean that you are reconsidering me for your affiliate program? And I never heard back from her. So that was like around 11 o'clock or so Friday. I write to her again around 3 o'clock on Friday. Could you please confirm whether or not you're reconsidering my application? Nothing. So here it is Sunday, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to get into this affiliate program or not. And what it means to be in an affiliate program, you've heard it 100 times. Anytime you're on a cooking channel or any kind of a channel where somebody is saying, I'll leave a link below, that means they're in an affiliate program. Amazon is probably most well known. And what that means is that we get a small commission for anything that you buy by clicking on our channel, taking you to Amazon, or in this case, eforms.com. Well, I know for sure about Amazon. You click, let's say you're in I'm getting way off track here, but I'm going to do it anyway. Let's say you're watching a cooking show and this woman's like, oh my God, this blender, I have this fabulous blender, right? I'll leave a link below. And sure enough, you go down through the description and you'll find this link for this fabulous blender that she's got. And you click into that, and click on that, and it will take you immediately to that blender. Well, if you buy that blender within 24 hours and you haven't left Amazon, you're still in Amazon because you came in through her link. The creator, meaning the person who did the video, will get a small commission. They'll also get a commission on anything you buy within the next 24 hours. So think about that. You know, if there's somebody that you really like who's struggling, and you want to help them out, click on one of their Amazon links and then go do your Christmas shopping. And that will definitely help out the people that you like on YouTube. That's what an affiliate program is about. So, anywho, my girlfriend always says that. Anywho. Okay. Anyway, if you see in the description that there's a link to eforms.com, that means I've made it into their affiliate program. Because I'm expecting as soon as I send this out, this is going to go out Sunday afternoon or maybe Sunday evening. And as soon as I send it, I'm going to find out for sure on Monday or Tuesday, right? So if you see a link, you'll know that for eforms.com, you'll know that I made it into the affiliate program. If not, I have not made it into the affiliate program. It doesn't really matter to me all that much. I would like it. It's a feather in the cap, but okay, let's get back to wills and trusts, or basically just wills at this point. Some common mistakes. Here we go. This is the fun part. This is the stuff that people love to do that you should never do. Number one. Oh, well, this is not so common, but don't forget to include all of your assets. You have to think about your online banking, your cryptocurrency, your social media. Maybe you're the owner of a YouTube channel. Well, is it worth something? How about if you have a business? You might have either a side business or a full-time business. How do you want that managed? Who do you want to have ownership of those businesses? Keep those things in mind. Oh, okay. So here we go with the things that people shouldn't do that they just love to do. One of the great things about a will is that you can give specific behests to a particular person. Let's say you have some jewelry that you love. You have maybe you have a set of tools. That tools, if you're like a body mechanic or a car mechanic, tools can be very expensive, and that can be quite a gift to somebody. What was the other thing? Oh, like collections, like a coin collection or something. So you want to give a certain something to a certain somebody. Keep in mind that anything that you name in your will that's of any value is going to have to be appraised by a professional. So that stamp collection that you have, you've got to get it appraised. And at least where I am, taxes will have to be paid on it. That's true with jewelry. It's true with anything that you say, oh, I want so-and-so to get boom, then boom is going to have to be appraised. Now, there's something you can do instead of that. I'll give you an example with my dad. My dad was born in 1927, okay? He had a pocket watch that was his father's, and he had a pocket watch that was his mother's father's, so his grandfather's. And at the time when he passed, he had 2 grandsons by my sister, and he had 2 daughters by me. And he wanted the boys to get the pocket watches, okay? That's fine. He did not put it in the will, but he told everybody. He told me, he told my sister, he told the boys, he told my brother-in-law, he told my mother, he told everybody. He wanted it to be quite well known who was to get which watch. That was no problem. When he passed, the boys got the watches, and that was it. And if you have a family that you could do something like that, great. If you have a family that says, excuse me, how about my kids? How come both of these 2 get pocket watches and my kids get squat? That's not right. No, that's not in the will. I want to contest that. Those watches are worth a lot of money. Okay? If you have people like that, then put it in the will. The worst thing you can do for your family is, let's say you have 3 daughters, and obviously one is your favorite. Everybody knows she's your favorite. And you've got a bunch of jewelry, but you want her to have your wedding band and your engagement ring because they're the most valuable, let's say. Don't just take her aside and say, look, you're to get the wedding band and the engagement ring. Okay, don't tell your sisters, but I want you to have them. You think she's getting them? Probably not. Especially if the executor doesn't particularly like the favorite grandchild. If you have any feeling like this may or may not go down the way you want it to, put it in the will. Okay. So now here's another big mistake. You want to disinherit somebody. You're perfectly allowed to disinherit somebody, but be careful about how you do it, okay? You can't put in your will, as long as as long as my son William is married to Marie, he is not to inherit any of my estate. And if after 1 year of my death, he's still married to Marie, he is never to take from my will. Might make you feel good. Maybe he married outside of your race, or he married outside of your your religion, or you just don't like this biatch, you know, you've always disliked her and you think she's bad for him, listen, that is unenforceable, at least in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and if I had to guess, I'd say in all 50 states. You cannot mandate to someone who they will be married to. It's not permissible. However, if you want to disinherit him, and everybody knows why, all you have to do is put in the will, for reasons best known to myself, I choose to leave my son William nothing from my estate. And that's it. It doesn't feel as good as saying, look, I told you 50 times I can't stand this woman. Try to control yourself when you're creating a legal document and simply say, for reasons best known to myself, I choose to leave my son, William, nothing. Then they can't dispute it. That's what she wants. That's her wish. There you go. Now, how about your daughter, Charlotte? Let's say you have 3 kids, 3 daughters. Eldest daughter, always so attentive to you and handles any of the difficult things that you need her to handle. Let's say for whatever, you need her to talk to. She's your power of attorney over everything because she's, very organized and blah, 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 like all eldest children. Not all. Okay, whatever. And the youngest child is so cute and so sweet, and she's kind of always been your favorite. And she's just always there for you, and she makes you laugh, and you just love that youngest child so much. But Charlotte's always been a pain in the ass. She just, anything you would suggest, she says no. She takes off, and you want her to go to college, she says no. She takes off, so suddenly she's living in Colorado doing God knows what. And you don't want her, you haven't heard from her in months, and you've decided she's not getting anything. She doesn't deserve anything. She's not getting anything. My other two daughters have been wonderful. So you decide to put this clause in to your will about how Charlotte is not to receive anything because, number 1, we've never gotten along. Number 2, she's never respected me. Number 3, she never comes to see me. I haven't seen her in I don't know when. And I don't want Charlotte to receive any kind of money. Well, is this going to be a problem? Depends. It depends on how large your estate is. If your estate is $3,000, Charlotte's probably going to be, no, I'm good. I'm over here in Colorado eating my gummies, and I'm cool. I don't give a shit. However, if it's $30,000 and she stands to inherit 10, she might want to consider consulting with an attorney. If it's $300,000 or $3 million, guess what? Charlotte's getting a frickin' attorney. And what's going to happen when she gets up on that stand? What's she going to say? What is she talking about? We never got along. We got along great until she insisted I go to college and I didn't want to, and she got all pissed off. Or she says, we never got along. We always got along. That was no problem. Or I don't respect her. Of course I respected her. She's my mother. Why wouldn't I respect her? Or she never comes to visit me. I heard that she was sick, and I flew in from Boulder just to be with her. I was here for a month. I saw her 4 times. Or 6 times or 10 times. 4 times might not be a lot. But I saw her, 6 times in the last 3 weeks of her life. Or I was there every day at the hospital. What is this? I never came to see her. I mean, was mom even compos mentis when she's writing this will? I mean, what is going on with her? Or did my sisters put some pressure on her to cut me out of the will? Maybe we should throw the whole will out. She either was not with it when she made the will. Who took her to the attorney to make this will? A baby sister. Who is the executrix on this will? Eldest sister. Believe me, if you start putting all that garbage into your will about all these reasons that you're so pissed off at her and she's not going to get a dime, she will get a dime. Plus, 1/3 of your estate. Again, you want to disinherit, dear beloved Charlotte? Just say, for reasons best known to myself, I've decided to leave Charlotte nothing from my estate. That's it. That's all you have to do. Okay, so we've discussed testamentary trusts a little bit. They're necessary for minor children or for dependents who have special needs. There might also be reasons to have a testamentary trust for taxes, for businesses. If you have a complicated will, go see an attorney. Okay, don't use eforms.com. If you have a simple will, I don't see any problem with eforms.com. In fact, I recommend them. But so you have to judge that. Nobody knows better than you do. So you decide whether or not you need an attorney or not. One thing I would say again about eforms.com, just look at it. I mean, you could do one by yourself. See, is this okay? Or is this like way too complicated? So you make that choice. Okay, so there's 2 more sections. One, very quick, executing the will. Executing the will just means signing it. And signing it in front of witnesses. Listen, the witnesses don't get to read your will. Okay? All they're doing is witnessing that you are the person who signed this will. That's all they're doing. Don't feel that I actually had somebody. I was trying to get an affidavit of translation signed I needed a notary. It needed to be notarized. And so I go to the bank where I did all my banking. And she says, well, I want to see what you translated. I said, you don't need to see what I translated. You need to just notarize that I am the one signing this certificate of translation. We got into a pissing fight over this. I was so pissed off. I mean, this was not my main bank. This was some little bank. It was Wells Fargo. I'm just going to tell you. It was fucking Wells Fargo. I can't stand them. And I only had maybe $3,000 in that account. And I went over and she refused to do it. I want to see what you were translating. That is absolutely not necessary. And so I went over, I right from there, she refused to do this for me. I'm like, okay, screw you. I went over and I took the $3,000 out of the frickin' bank. I said, because Wells Fargo had been my mortgagor. Anyway, they had my mortgage and I hated them from then. So this was just kind of left over. I'm like, I don't want anything more to do with you. And she's absolutely wrong. In fact, I went back to the office and I called the notary people down in Philly because at the time I had my office in Philadelphia, and I called them and said, no, she's absolutely wrong. So look, the notary doesn't get to read your will. The witnesses don't get to read your will. The executor or executrix does not get to read your will. But you need to make sure that your signature is witnessed so that people know that you are the one who signed this document not, youngest child. I am youngest child. Can you tell? I'm a little prejudiced. Okay. All right. Now, where was I? Okay. So the will is done. It's been executed. It's been signed. It's been witnessed. It's been notarized. Everything's done. Now, what do you do? What do you do with it? Keep it someplace safe. Okay. You can keep it in a safe in your house. I have like a little firebox. It's a real heavy thing. It's supposed to be what I take with me if my house catches on fire. Once I get my cat secured, you get the firebox and you leave the house with this, because that's got your passport, your will, your this, your that. Anything that's important to you goes into that firebox. Some people put it in the safety deposit box at a bank. Again, because it's all states' right stuff. Where I come from, if you walk into the bank, let's say you're co-owner with your parent, and your parent has passed away, and you want to go through that safety deposit box, do not walk into the bank and say, oh, and they say, oh, how you doing? Haven't seen you for a while. And say, oh, mom just passed away. I need to get into the safety deposit box. You will, at least where I come from, you will not be allowed into that box. They will allow, and I don't know if it's the person, I don't know if it's I would assume it has to be a bank executive that can go into that box and look for a will. That is the only reason they will let anybody open up that box, to see if there's a will in there. But again, check with your local rules to see what you should do. The bottom line is that taking care of your legacy is a gift to your loved ones, okay? They don't have to guess about what you wanted. There doesn't have to be any fights about it, because it's down in black and white. It's hard to think about. I get it. It's uncomfortable. Especially what happens if, your child predeceases you. Oof, that always gets people. But the hardest part is beginning. Once you begin, each step gets you a little bit closer. And by the time you have your will done, that's one less thing you have to worry about. And here comes the disclaimer. Please be aware of the fact that anything in this video is given for informational purposes only. It's not legal advice. There's no attorney-client relationship developing here. It's just to give you some information that will help you out, hopefully, in the future. If you like what you see, please click like, please subscribe. And if you're interested, by the way, if you're interested in a video like this about powers of attorney, living wills, please let me know, because I'll be more than happy to prepare something for them. Thank you.